Blackstone at Thief River in 2015. Before that, Indian Creek and Smoky Town. I'm DJ Resin.
And this is Mitch, and you're tuned into Indigenous Insights here on Eagle Country 105.7. So hopefully this is the start of kind of a new feature here on the show, Donovan. We have our Glyphwick segment coming up. Our Neej, Levi Tatterson of Glyphwick, sat down with Wesley Ballinger, who is a language specialist also working at Glyphwick, and he sat down with him to learn a little bit about what West does, their efforts in language revitalization at Glyphwick. It's some of the most progressive work seen in Native America today. And this interview is kind of an opportunity to see what some of those jobs in Native America might entail. Here's Levi from Glyphwick.
Can you introduce yourself?
Koe Anin Indinoy Maganaduk, Neogijik Indigo, Migazin Dudame, Mississauga Ganin Ajanakatish, Konagun, Unjabayan. Agaye Wesley Ballinger, Indigenous Joganashimung.
What is your job title and what do you do?
So my official title is language specialist, but that position is evolving through the various projects that I work on here at Great Lakes Indian Fish and Wildlife Commission. At the commission, we work on language revitalization, Anishinaabe language revitalization, because our treaties and everything we do within the scope of the ceded territory and the landmass also is a representation of our culture. Language is the most powerful tool in which to underpin that culture, that Ijitwawan, Anishinaabe Ijitwawan. So utilizing the language to connect ourselves further to history, to the land, traditional ecological knowledge, to reinforce treaty practices, harvesting practices, whether it's Menominee-Kewin, Iskigimizagewin, Giyosewin, Mawinzowin, all these different harvesting activities we want to reinforce with Anishinaabe Moin, thus to strengthen our position as sovereign nations and to strengthen our culture and to remind everyone, not only Anishinaabe people, but everyone that yes, we are still here. We are not people of the past. We are people of the present.
How? So, what is the favorite part of your job? What do you like most?
Favorite part of my job, or favorite aspect of my job, is utilizing language and art as a means of communicating ideas, to create access, to create interest within younger people, younger tribal people, to want to learn the language, want to learn their history, to have a healthier sense of self-identity, and by using art and language to bridge those understandings is very rewarding for me, and is primarily exactly what I went to school for through the University of Minnesota Twin Cities campus. I took art first and foremost, and Ojibwe language as a means of just being a better person, being a better niche. Never really dreamed about finding a career that encapsulates both those disciplines, and fortunately I found that here at Great Lakes Indian Fish and Wildlife Commission.
So where did you learn your language from?
My first teacher was I was 17 years old, junior, or actually a senior in high school. Don Pewash. He has since walked on, but taught me about, simple verbs like I'm running, I'm eating, you're running, you're eating, what we would call VAI verbs. Different animals, how to count, how to use money, count money and change, and of course how to say blueberry pie. It was from that 1 year in high school that really pushed me forward into college when I started taking it more seriously in college. So some speakers will say I've had too many teachers. I can name Don Pewash, Colin Oak Grove, Dennis Jones, who is a good friend and I still consider a teacher to this day, Larry Smallwood, Brendan Fairbanks, Sawanagabo, Nancy Jones, Benny Rogers, who has walked on, even the people who I've worked with as peers, I consider teachers, whether that's Boise, Leon Valliere, Mike Sullivan, Leslie Harper, Wawa Kayosh, Keller Papp, There's so many really knowledgeable people out there that you come across, and you share ideas, and you just broadens your understanding of Anishinaabemowin. So yeah, I've had a few, more than, and there's more than I just could even name right now. So if I forgot anyone, my apologies. But yeah, everyone I run into who has some grasp of the knowledge, I try to glean what I can off of them, because it's those interactions, that community, that interaction that really helps us understand the language and how it's used.
How do you feel that your job is impacting the communities you work with?
I think one, with how I approach depicting the language and teaching the language and creating these materials by utilizing art, I focus on those early grades: kindergarten, first grade, second grade, third grade, fourth grade, even fifth grade, to create an interest, something that's approachable. I can remember when I was in first grade and we had a Anishinaabe man, Mr. Appleby, came to our class, and he talked about Adizukewan, and he talked about Asabun and the blind men and those stories. And I remember there was such impactful experience that I remembered that. I remembered how to count to 5, basically, Niswaniwananen. And that was the only time I was ever taught that, from 6th grade until I was 17. And I remember that through that, 11, 12 years. So those early experiences in childhood stick with you. And so if I can impart that onto a few kids, or whoever comes across our materials, or have a chance to talk to different classes or community groups, boys and girls clubs, if I can even be partially impactful in how that man was impacted me, then I feel that's a success. And to create that interest, we can't make people learn. We can't make people want to learn. We can inspire people. We can inspire the youth, but it's each individual. It's their choice to chase that language, to chase get Anishinaabe on, to chase that Inwewen, that language. And if I can inspire, then that's a success in my eyes. So that's how I view my approach to language revitalization efforts.
What do you hope to see for future generations?
I hope to see that we have self-respect, that we have that pride, that we don't have to make excuses for the past, that we are healthy spiritually, healthy mentally, healthy emotionally, so that we aren't victimizing ourselves, and we're not being victimized by economic pressures, by cultural pressures, by chemical dependency, chemical addictions, by violence, gang violence. We don't have to. I don't like seeing our youth chase that contrarian culture. I want them to see the Anishinaabe culture, our history, and find pride in that, find self-respect in that, and to have the knowledge and the courage to step up when others would denigrate that history, that experience, that culture. And I think by knowing the language, that sets the foundations for that strength.
What are your thoughts on what people are calling decolonization and the decolonization efforts that are happening around the Great Lakes?
I think I think there definitely needs to be a decolonization, more efforts in decolonizing thought, decolonizing culture. There has been a great amount of resources that have been used in efforts to colonize us as a people. And I'll just speak just as Anishinaabe people. I mean, we have the whole spectrum of all the indigenous tribes on Turtle Island, and each community, each tribe has their own experience. But I'll talk in reference to the Anishinaabe. Millions of dollars, if not billions of dollars, were spent to take our language away from us, to take our government away from us, to take our land away from us, to terrorize our ancestors into thinking that it was more useful to think of ourselves as Americans instead of as Anishinaabe people. And so in doing that, we see the toxicity of those practices nowadays. We see those dominoes fall, and we're, all those dominoes that has fallen in the past, and we're in the process now where we're still dealing with this dysfunctionality in terms of chemical dependency, in terms of violence, domestic violence, in terms of gang violence, in terms of fighting and being respected across institutional lines, whether it's a state DNR or whether it's federal bodies. Our sovereignty, our culture is always being assaulted or is being undervalued. And so when we decolonize our words, decolonize our history, we use our voices to tell our story, to tell our history, and I think that's very important.
That's very insightful. Miigwech, for taking your time to do this interview with us, and hopefully we'll hear from you again soon.
Oh, miigwech, Mitch.
Oh, Miigwech.
No.
Friday night tonight.